Everyone in the village said she was the most beautiful bride they had ever seen. Her name was Adaku, a quiet girl from the sleepy town of Umans in southeastern Nigeria. Raised by her grandmother after a mysterious fire took her parents, Adaku had grown up sheltered but dignified. She never raised her voice. She never questioned tradition. Her beauty was the kind that made men lower their eyes and women whisper behind her back. Yet no one truly knew her. On the morning of her wedding day, the sun was high, the skies were clear, and the drums of celebration beat through the village like a heartbeat. Guests had gathered. The white canopy had been set. The roasted goat steamed in the corner. Her groom, Obinna, a wealthy businessman from the neighboring town, stood tall and proud in a cream-colored agbada. And Adaku was nowhere to be found. Minutes turned to hours. And then, just as worry began to spread through the air like thick harmattan dust, a call came from the outskirts. A farmer had seen her on the old Ekwe Bridge, the one that hovered dangerously over the Odiu River, the same bridge known for taking more than it ever gave. By the time Obinna and the villagers arrived, it was already too late. Her white gown floated like a lily on the black water, and the veil danced in the current like a ghost bidding farewell. No one knew why she did it. No letter, no warning, no clue. But that was only the beginning of the story. Because after Adaku's body disappeared into the river, things in Umans began to change. The air turned colder at night. The children stopped playing near the water. People swore they saw a woman in white walking the bridge at midnight. And then the deaths began. Buddy warned the girl in the water. 3 days after the incident, fishermen found her wedding shoes on the bank of the river. Strangely, they were dry, as though untouched by water. The elder among them, Papa Ifani, squinted at the shoes and whispered, "She has not gone. Her spirit lingers." No one questioned him. In Umans, the old ones knew what they were talking about. Obinna, shattered and ashamed, left the village that same evening. Some say he was so heartbroken he lost his voice. Others claim he saw something by the river that day, something that made his hair turn gray overnight. The bride price he paid was returned. The gifts were gathered and burned. But the air of sorrow remained. That night, the priest of the shrine, Dibian woke, dreamt of a girl standing at the bridge's edge. Her skin was pale, her eyes hollow, and her mouth stitched shut. She pointed at the village with a hand covered in blood and opened her mouth to scream, but no sound came out. The next morning, Dibian woke found his compound filled with dead crows. Each of them had a piece of white fabric in their beaks. Before her death, Adaku was known for her silence. But silence, like still water, often hides the deepest currents. A week after her burial, what burial they could manage, given they never found the body, her best friend, Neka, confessed to something that shook the elders. "Adaku didn't want to marry Obinna," she said, her voice trembling. "She told me. She was being forced. She said the gods warned her not to. She said." The river spoke to her. At first, everyone dismissed her words as grief-induced madness. But when Neka was found the next day floating face down in her mother's well, people started to listen. Her death was ruled an accident. But the well had been sealed shut for years. Obinna's cousin, a young man named Tobe who had once tried to woo Adaku, began investigating on his own. He remembered how she used to sit by the riverbank, sketching strange symbols into the sand. He recalled the odd questions she asked, about sacrifices, old gods, and forgotten shrines. The last time he saw her, she whispered, "There is something beneath us, Tobe. Something ancient. Something hungry." The village began to whisper of the river bride, a spirit from legend said to lure women to the water, possessing them on their wedding day so it could marry through their bodies. Folktale, they said. A bedtime story to scare children. But Adaku had read the old texts. Hidden scrolls passed down through her grandmother. Texts that spoke of Muonwanimiri, the spirit wife of the river, jealous of any woman who dared marry in her presence. 2 months after Adaku's death, another wedding was planned in Umans. A girl named Amara was to wed a pastor's son. Her dress was sewn by the same seamstress who made Ataku's. Coincidence, perhaps. Or maybe not. The night before the wedding, Amara had a nightmare. In the dream, she stood on Equi Bridge, staring into the river. From the dark water, a pale hand reached out, offering her a golden ring. She took it. When she woke, the ring was on her finger. That morning, her family rushed to the church. The ceremony was to be small, quick, and private. But when it was time to speak her vows, Amara opened her mouth and let out a scream so chilling it cracked the glass windows. She fainted on the spot. And on her palm, written in what looked like blood, were the words, "I said no." The wedding was cancelled. Amara left Umans that night and never returned. Some said she went mad. Others believed she had seen Ataku. As the village descended into fear, Dibia Woke knew something had to be done. He called the elders and demanded they reveal what they had hidden for decades. An argument broke out. Old wounds reopened. But one thing became clear. The shrine beneath the bridge had once been sacred, devoted to the river spirit that protected Umans. But when the missionaries came, the elders, eager to modernize, sealed it and declared it cursed. They buried its history, along with its rituals, its symbols, and the warnings that came with it. Ataku's grandmother had tried to revive the shrine quietly, sensing the spirit's anger. She had taught Ataku the old ways. But when the fire consumed her hut, everyone assumed it was a coincidence. It wasn't. Now the spirit wanted something in return. It wanted a bride. It happened on the third full moon after Ataku's death. A storm tore through Umans like a god enraged. The Odiu River flooded, swallowing crops and homes. Thunder cracked like whips, and lightning painted the night in haunting silhouettes. That night Obinna returned. He stood at the edge of the Equi Bridge, drenched, shaking and muttering, "She's calling me." He stepped onto the middle of the bridge and removed his agbada. "She told me what happened. She told me what they did. She wasn't supposed to be the bride. It was supposed to be." Before he could finish, a massive wave rose from the river and crashed over the bridge, pulling him under. The villagers searched for him for days. They found only his gold wristwatch tangled in a thorn bush near the shore. And once again, the veil was seen floating near the water. Still white. Still dry. 3 months after Ataku's disappearance into the Odiu River, Umans village lived in quiet fear. The elders no longer met under the Irako tree. Weddings were cancelled or taken far away from the river. Even children, once fearless in their play, now crossed themselves at the mention of her name. Ataku was no longer just a girl. She had become something else. An omen, a ghost, a whisper in the dark. And then she came back. Not as a spirit in a dream. Not as a shadow on the bridge. But in the flesh. And her eyes were not the same. It was during the Harmattan season when she returned. One evening, as the dusty wind howled and lanterns flickered in the wind, a young boy named Somadina ran into the village square shouting, "She's back! She's at the shrine!" The villagers followed, hesitant but curious, clutching torches and charms. There she stood, Ataku. Same gown, same hair, same gold bracelet Obinna had given her. But her skin was too smooth, too pale. Her feet were bare and clean despite the mud. And when the village priest approached her, she said nothing. She only smiled, then turned toward the bridge and walked slowly, as if pulled by invisible strings. "Don't follow her," the priest whispered, clutching his staff. "That is not the girl we buried." That night the dreams returned. The same image over and over. Ataku in a wedding gown, dancing alone beneath the bridge. Her arms wrapped around nothing, her lips moving in silent song. And in the river below her feet, something stirred. A massive shape watching, waiting. Dibia Woke performed a divination. The cowrie shells scattered across the mat, forming a pattern he hadn't seen in decades. Marriage of the dead. An old ritual. Forbidden. The river spirit, Muonwanimiri, had chosen a bride. Ataku had not taken her own life. She had been claimed. And her wedding was still happening. In her grandmother's hut, long abandoned and half-eaten by termites, a young girl named Ifeanyi found a rusted metal box hidden beneath the floorboards. Inside, wrapped in red cloth, was Adiku's journal. The pages were filled with sketches, symbols, runes, strange water creatures, diagrams of human and fish anatomy merged grotesquely. But in between the madness were entries. The river hums at night. Sometimes I see faces in it. Women. Pale, hollow, singing songs I don't understand. Grandmother says the river once chose girls every generation. But the elders stopped listening. Obinna is kind. But he is not the one I love. There is something else. Something calling me. It sings in my blood now. They said the bridge was built on sacred ground. But I think it's more than that. I think the bridge is a gate. Ifeanyi brought the journal to Nigerian. He read it in silence, then muttered. She was marked from birth. That night, he began preparing a ritual that hadn't been performed in over 70 years. For months, no one spoke of Obinna. But one woman, Madam Chisholm, the oldest midwife in Humans, finally confessed what she had kept hidden. Obinna's mother had come to her years ago, before Adiku was ever chosen. She brought a goat, a bottle of gin, and a secret. She wanted her son to marry a girl blessed by the river, so their family would prosper. Chisholm warned her that meddling with the river spirits was dangerous. But the mother insisted. A ritual was performed. Obinna's destiny was tied to the water. But the spirits had their own will. They chose Adiku not to bless Obinna's house, but to claim her as their own. And when Obinna tried to marry her, breaking the ancient pact, the river took her. But it didn't end there. Because a bride given to the river cannot belong to a man. And a groom who tries to take her must be punished. On the 7th day after Adiku's return, the villagers awoke to music. Soft flute sounds echoed from the bridge. Flowers, fresh and unpicked, floated in the river. And on the center of the bridge stood a wedding altar. No one dared approach. Except Ifeanyi. She alone had read every word of Adiku's journal. She alone believed there was a chance, no matter how small, to bring her back. So she stepped forward, holding a clay pot filled with ashes from the burnt shrine and a white feather tied with red thread. When she reached the altar, Adiku turned to her. And for a brief moment her eyes, so alien, so cold, flickered with something familiar. Ifeanyi, she whispered. You must finish the ritual. What ritual? She asked, heart pounding. Adiku's hands trembled. The gate was opened. The bridge was never for people. It's a crossing. Between us and them. I was not the first. I won't be the last. She collapsed in Ifeanyi's arms. The river roared. From beneath the waters a figure emerged. Not human. 7 feet tall. Skin like stone. Eyes like polished shells. A veil of seaweed across its face. It extended a hand. Ifeanyi stood tall, heart shaking, and spoke words from the journal, an ancient invocation written in her grandmother's blood. The spirit paused. Then, without a sound, it sank back into the river. Adiku gasped and coughed water from her lungs. And for the first time in months, her eyes looked alive. They say the river went quiet after that night. Adiku never fully spoke of what happened beneath the water, but she never wore white again. Her hair turned silver in a week, and her laughter never returned. Nigerian rebuilt the shrine, not to worship but to guard. No weddings have taken place near the bridge since. The Ekwe Bridge itself was sealed and cursed with protective sigils. Anyone who crosses it after midnight vanishes. Ifeanyi left Humans to study ancient texts in Enugu. Some say she's becoming a Dibia herself. But every year on the night of the Harmattan moon, villagers leave offerings by the water. White feathers, river stones, and drops of palm wine. Not to worship, but to remember. Because Adiku didn't jump. She was claimed. And the river never forgets its brides.